Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today I am just doing the first in a new series of videos I've been meaning to do for months, years, a long time, however you cut it. This is my Bandit Keith original series anime accurate Yu-Gi-Oh character deck. Me and my friends have been playing character decks since 2015, and I'm going to give you a quick explanation of how we play them basically so that you can understand the deck a little bit better. And this is going to be the first deck in the series. There'll be many more original series, GX and 5D's character decks to follow when we get around to doing those. But of course, yeah, I wanted to start with the one that I started with basically, and that was and as soon as me and my friend Tom talked about doing this back in 2015, Bandit Keith was the first person I thought of, first person I said, first person that came to mind, went straight to it. And honestly, it's not the greatest character deck I have, it's not the strongest, but it probably is my favorite. It could just be for that nostalgia of being the first one. It could be because, you know, it can do some cool stuff, and it can just be a bit of a laugh. But yeah, so first of all, what we do with character decks is, like I say, we go for anime accuracy. We go for one copy of everything, unless the card only works in multiple copies, they used multiple copies, or if it's funny. I'll explain that a little bit more later on. And if you're getting very close to the monster count, if you're very shy on the card count, we might be a little bit more lenient. And there is definitely an example of that in this particular deck. Because when I first started putting keys together, the deck was very short on normal summons, and he's actually gotten quite a lot between reprints and me just digging further and all that kind of stuff. It used to be kind of like a deck with like 8 tribute monsters and like 13 monsters all in all. But yeah, we kind of cut some of the fat and added some stuff to it and all that kind of stuff. We also play anime accurate card effects. So Card of Sanctity has the effect to draw until you both have 6 cards in hand. And we've also said that every character can use Pot of Greed, Card of Sanctity, and Graceful Charity just as draw engines, just to give you a fighting chance in coming back, in getting everyone, like, in giving everyone a kind of equal footing, a chance to dig into their really good stuff. It's just a bit of fun, you know, there's nothing competitive about it at all, so it really is not a big deal. We also put a few cards in the extra deck, which we'll be explaining in this, which we would not normally in normal Yu-Gi-Oh! For example, ritual monsters will be in the extra deck in this, because in the anime, if someone did ritual summon, they didn't really have the ritual monster. It just kind of played the spell card and the ritual monster appeared. And we stick as much as possible to cards that they actually used in the anime, although I think there are a few lingerers in this deck from at the very start of the character decks where we were a little bit more lenient with video games. We're actually getting a little bit more lenient with manga cards recently, which is something I did think of with Keith to up the normal summon count, because he had a couple of manga cards, and I did used to play Fiendish Engine Omega in this, which he did play in the manga, but I actually took that out not too long ago, and his monster count's pretty fine now, so I don't think there's any real need to put the manga cards in. But that being said, you know, I might rethink that. But again, that's more or less the kind of thing where it's like, if you need the cards, then it works. So anyway, I think that's absolutely everything. So beyond that, we're just going to get into this. So we kind of give Bandit Keith a license to just use any machine monster. I think that kind of makes sense. There's various other kind of like blank checks that we pass out to characters, like Rex Raptor could theoretically use any dinosaurs. However, his card pool for dinosaurs is really small. Even with dragons, it's really small. Even with reptiles, it's really small. But I digress. So yeah, we got the Bandit Keith cover card. I actually, ironically, only picked this up when I was playing a really silly Desperado Barrel Dragon deck. Deck goes nowhere without it now. Bandit Keith cover card, just a bit of fun. So the extra deck starts with the 2 fusion monsters. First of all, we have Gatling Dragon. Now, I don't know if I summoned this like early on in the character games and just kind of forgot about it, but I feel like it took me the longest time to actually play this card. It's cool though, you know, it's really, really cool. We got the first Ed Flaming Eternity version, because we started picking these up in 2015, slightly before the boom for classic Yu-Gi-Oh!, you know, GOAT format, character decks, all that kind of stuff. Slightly before all that kind of stuff took off, we managed to get a lot of stuff really cheap to fuel these decks, so that's really cool. Yeah, Gatling Dragon's really cool. I don't think I get him out on an awful lot. I do have an extra way to make getting him out a little bit easier. That's yet to come off yet. and it's definitely debatable whether or not that is worth doing. The second fusion monster in the extra deck is Labyrinth Tank. This is literally because you're running a copy of Polymerization for this anyway, and you're also definitely running Gigatech Wolf and Cannon Soldier just as machine monsters. The focus really is having a time of it today, isn't it? I think it just makes sense to include that. This, I would say, is more of a Paradox Brothers card, but at the end of the day, it just makes sense. You got the monsters in the deck anyway. And next up, we have the kind of added inclusions for the extra deck. So like I say, we keep ritual monsters in here. So we got Zera the Mant. This is really good because including the ritual monster in your extra deck means that the mechanic is actually good. And I think a lot of decks suffer from not having ritual monsters. Particularly in the original series. Obviously, not really a whole bunch of anyone has them in GX or 5Ds, but yeah, I think you kind of at a disadvantage if you don't have a ritual monster in your deck. Zera the Mant is really good for Keith to just kind of go into. Like I say, in the early days, he had a lot of big monsters, not a lot of little ones, so it was easy to just go Zera Ritual, discard something big and go Zera the Mant. And then, you could discard like a Fiendish Engine or a Barrel Dragon or something and Monster Reborn it, so that was cool. And the final thing that we keep in here, a little bit of an extra one for Keith and Joey, this is Metal Zoa. Again, this was more of Zoa with the metal on him than it was, its own card. So what we basically do is you flip the Metal Morph, you tribute the Zoa, you play the Zoa with the Metal Morph on it. Ironically, I don't think I've gotten this out any less than Gatling Dragon, despite you would think it would be significantly harder. And there were a few duels in a row where I got it. Like, he had a bit of a run where he was turning up quite a lot, or at least he got very close. Anyway, now we're getting into the main deck monsters. So following on from Metal Zoa, we have Zoa. One sad thing is that it can exploded in my bag one time. This Zoa looks pretty good in spite of it, but I do think there is slight warping along the top. But yeah, anyway, really cool card. He's one of my favorites from when I was a kid. I love Keith's monster pool, especially these weird kind of janky fiends he used. The Sayaryu as well. He shows the warping and the damage a lot worse. This was actually my childhood copy. Still makes me sad every time I see it. I need to replace this with another STD one. I do actually have the Ghost from the Past reprint, as weird as that was. But I still don't have the heart to take this out, even though it is literally like a Pringle. But yeah, again, just really cool. 2 tributes again. You're quite often just going to pitch this to Monster Reborn or something. One time it was really funny. I was stuck in like a gridlock with my friend, and I discarded this for hand size, and he played Buster Blader and gained attack points because that was in my grave. That was really funny. Next we have Barrel Dragon, of course. Very, very typical Bandit Keith card. I recently replaced this with the Lost Art. You can see the mail opening where I received this in my channel. That'll be in the DSW Tabletop playlist in the end screen. I just thought this is a little bit more anime, and I'm kind of disappointed that the Blowback Dragon didn't get a Lost Art as well, because I just feel like they fit the aesthetic of the anime, etc. a little bit more. So the Blowback we are currently working with is the MC2 copy, which is my childhood copy. However, I have ordered an Ancient Sanctuary copy of this so that they're at least matching rarities. They're both ultra rare. So that's really cool. I mean, I might put the Master Collection Barrel Dragon back in one day. Who knows? This card's really good. It's really important for the deck. It's it's obviously it's the most potent kind of tribute monster because obviously it's only one tribute. It has a really effective effect if you get the effect off, of course. But most of the time he's gonna do you a solid whether he's beating over stuff or whether he's blowing it up. So that's really cool. And finally, the final tribute monster we have is Machine King. Again, much like Labyrinth Tank, I think it's fair enough that Keith has Machine King, but I do feel like this is more of, this is a card that kind of belongs to a different person. So I do have plans to take this out. In fact, I thought I had already. I thought I'd previously taken this out. I was actually planning on putting it back in because there's been a lot of focus recently on one tribute monsters, and obviously only... In theory, if I had taken this out, which I thought I had, I would only have one tribute monster in there. And yeah, they're really important in this format. So yeah, I was definitely going to put him back in. Turns out he's actually still in there. But yeah, there's a few other ideas I have for one tribute. One of them is really, really stupid. Probably won't last long, but it'll be funny while he's there. We have Mechanical Chaser. He's the beat stick. He's cool. I love this card. This is my childhood copy from the Ancient Gears structure deck. Yeah, I was so glad when this got printed in that. We have Guardian of the Throne Room. Again, he does a decent amount of attacking and defending. It's pretty cool. He really should have been a tribute back in those days. Robotic Knight, same again, just a bit of a bigger ass. I would have rather not used Robotic Knight, but again, you know, it makes sense. It's thematic, and you know, we got to get the monster count up. We got Overdrive, and we got Ground Attacker Bugroth. Now, against Yugi, he actually used multiple copies of Ground Attacker, but I just didn't want to do that. So, it is quite possible I didn't have 2 copies of this, but yeah, I kind of would rather play the other guys than play multiple copies of Ground Attacker. I feel like that's just a bit boring. We've got Gigatech Wolf. Again, it's just a machine. Labyrinth Tank Target. It's really weak. This thing, honestly... You wouldn't think the 1400 is that bad in original series, but yeah, this thing is never staying on the field if you're playing it. Next up for the vanillas, we have 3 copies of Blocker. This is just a really stupid thing that we decided on early on in the game, again, to just kind of build his monster count up. We just think this is a funny card. It's a good wall, and it just gives people PTSD when every duel they're probably swinging into one of these. There was one time where I really jacked one of these up. It was really cool. I think it was on like 3-5 or something daft like that. So yeah, that was really funny. We've had a lot of fun with Blocker over the years. I would cut this, or at least like knock it down for the sake of you know, using some more accurate stuff like the manga cards, etc. But nah, we just find it too much fun. And the final vanilla in here is Golgoyle, which Speed Duels gave us, which was very kind of them. He's pretty weak. He's nothing on Robotic Knight or Guardian of the Throne Room, but he does exist, and 1600 isn't bad. We can live with this. Again, it's another body in the Keith pool, so, you know, we can't really argue with that too much. Next, we have the effect monsters. He only really used 2. So first of all, we have Blastsphere. This is like your solution to everything. This is such a good card. I still can't believe this was actually in Duelist Kingdom. You know, when you played it, it has something stupid like 3-4 attack or something daft. Like the 4 quid's really messed up on that. We all know Blastsphere. If you played any kind of old format, like even Speed Duels, anything like that, any kind of like slower format of Yu-Gi-Oh, you probably know what Blastsphere is. It's a pretty gnarly card, and it's he hasn't really shown up for a long time, but in the early days of character games, you were sat there thinking, I hope he attacks into Blastsphere with the big guy, and they did it every single time. The only other effect monster he really used was Cyberjar. Again, it's ironic, really, because I don't feel like this is a Keith card. I feel like this is more like Kyber and other stuff. He actually did use this, so yeah, I'm totally justified in playing this. The jars are really fun in this format because, you know, you just don't really know what's going to happen from them. And early on in playing this, again, with the small, like, the small no tribute monster count, most of the time you just drew 4 cards off this. Like, most of the time you didn't see a whole bunch of monsters. And the other thing we have here is Fiberjar. Again, I have actually been tempted to take this out recently, but we have so much fun with Fiberjar. It's hard to kind of commit to it. We do have someone playing Joey who also has Fiberjar, so there's that element to it. But it would be a huge hit to Keith because this card is broken at the end of the day. You know, like it really should never have existed. But it is a lot of fun. Next we have Roulette Barrel. Now I'm playing the Duke Devlin character deck. This is probably just going to get cut. I could probably count on one hand the amount of times this has actually destroyed anything. But it does have a really nice defense value. But again, Keith's just really not struggling for monsters anymore. And the gambling does suit Keith, but I just feel like this card suits Duke Devlin a lot more. As does Oni Tank, who appears to have already gone. Now that I think about it, I thought Oni Tank was still in here. We've got Cannon Soldier. Again, just good. Dark Machine as well, so it's thematic for Keith. A little bit more so than usual. And then we have 2 very interesting ones. We have Patrol Robo. This was just a really dumb card that, you know, I realized at some point I could order one for my classic card collection and then just run it in this. During your standby phase, you can look at one face-down card that's been set by your opponent as long as this card remains face up on the field. It's so niche, it's so specific, and you better believe it's funny when you actually get it off. It's so weak as well, of course. It does basically nothing. And finally, we have Cyberstein. We needed this to get unbanned and reprinted to be worth, like, playing in the deck. Because, you know, it was just so expensive. But, again, it's a Dark Machine. And it's really, really stupid. But Gatling Dragon is actually a target for it. It can be special summoned. So, technically, you can special summon Gatling Dragon at the cost of 5k. And then just hope for the best. And it's something that, you know, I wanted to do from the moment I realized I could do that. However, I just don't think his time in the deck is going to be long. Especially, as I've said multiple times, now we have like the patrol robos and the gargoyle and all that kind of stuff, like all this kind of stuff, and we have 3 copies of 7 completed. I used to run 3 copies of Machine Conversion Factory as well, and just like kind of, you know, it was kind of a thing where it was like if you see a monster, you just jack it up like all hell. Cost 7 completed, just a really cool card in this time frame. 3 magic cards. I'm actually going to show you how I cheated with this deck once, but first of all, I have to show you these 3 copies of 7. Again, it just fits Keith, the slot machine 7 thing, and it's a really stupid janky thing. If you have all 3 copies of 7 on your field, you discard them all, draw 3 cards, and gain 700 life points for each. It's really, really stupid, and you best believe it is hype as heck if you actually get it off. And this is basically how I cheated with it one time. My friend Tom was giving me a lift to locals, and I said to him, you know what I've never done with Bandit Keith? I've never cheated. And that same day, I had a hand that looked something like this. And then I just kind of closed them up like this and said, oh, Tom, it's time. 3 7s. And he didn't even notice it. Didn't even see it. Yeah, that's how I cheated. And then at the end of the game, I came clean. I said, by the way, Tom, that was cheating. So it is possible to cheat with this deck. Next up, we have Zero Ritual, obviously. We have the Secret of the Bandit. It's just daft, isn't it? Bandit Keith, Secret of the Bandit. Funnily enough, Yanagi from 5Ds can also use this. Very, very weird, but very, very true. We also have Curse of Fiend. Keith doesn't have a lot of like stapley kind of things. Theoretically, this can be really good. Change all attack position and defense position monsters to the opposite mode. Theoretically, it's really good. It's the only normal spell card that you can activate during your standby phase. I did take this out for a while, but I do think there is just a huge lack in like spell cards in the Keith deck that actually interact with your opponent, like actual offensive cards. We've of course got the spell package, Card of Sanctity, Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, as I mentioned earlier. Then we have Monster Reborn and Dark Hole. I think this is a relic, as I mentioned, from the video game times. I didn't realize this was first edition LOB. That's really cool. I've had this for so long. It's, again, there's not an awful lot of offensive spell cards in the deck, and I do kind of want to take it out because he didn't really use it, but I fear for how weak the deck will become when he doesn't have that option. We also have the Polymerization, of course, and we have the Limiter Removal, of course. And finally, we have Tribute to the Doomed, which he did use, and it's his only other like offensive spell card option. So yeah, you kind of have to include that. We've ironically been talking about using this as a staple, particularly in GX, like the possibility of that, but definitely in this as a card you actually use, definitely something you actually want to use. We got Metal Morph. Just, you know, it's Metal Morph, isn't it? What are you going to do? If you can't get into your Metal Zoa, this is still a pretty good trap card, so it's really not a big deal. Time Machine, I couldn't tell you how many times this has sorted me out. It's also really cool, of course, to see the Metal Morph cards getting retrained in the Metal Morph archetype. We got Solemn Judgment. Use this against Yugi when possessed by Marek. And I have a weird habit of picking the character decks who all used Solemn Judgment, so it's very interesting. You'll see a lot of that as you go along. Keith gets the Secret Rare Legendary Collection Joy's World copy, of course. He's had this since the very start. We have the Ultra Rare 7 Tools of the Bandit as well. Again, Bandit Keith. It's just funny. Call of the Haunted, of course. And finally, I think this is a relic from the video game era as well. We have Widespread Ruin. But I love this trap card. And again, he has very few offensive spells and traps. So I very much don't really want to take it out, but I accept that it isn't really on theme, so I accept that it kind of does need to be cut. But that is everything for the deck. So if you enjoyed this, please do like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the DSW Tabletop playlist in the end screen for more, and keep an eye out for the uploads of more of my character decks. I'm going to upload Chaz Princeton next as my first GX character deck, and then Leo as my first 5Ds character deck, even though he wasn't my first 5Ds character. My first one was Trudge, and I had to kind of fudge that a little bit. And then I didn't like it, so I undid it. And now Trudge is kind of mixed with Armstrong to get the monster count up. And that'll all be explained in the video. But anyway, yeah, keep an eye out for that if you enjoyed this video. And I really hope you did enjoy this video. But either way, thank you all for joining me, and goodbye. If you have all 3 copies of 7 on your face,